So, it's got a good question. A while ago, when we still had the conception of this retreat, you may have seen a long time ago that I did a call for topics that would be interesting. And honestly, the topics that came out was the good Dr. Alan Byrd's statistics on our Black student population. The reason why I think this is critical is as Black male faculty and staff, supporting our Black students is critical to me, I'll say to me, to my well-being and belonging here at George Mason, right? Being able to give back. And so we have a real thorough snapshot at the population that's coming in. I want you to, as you listen to Dr. Byrd's presentation, think of ways in which your office can support those Black students in the capacity that it is. So, I'm thinking you, SSCC, how we need to make sure that our food insecure students, particularly our food insecure students of color, are getting support. David Atkins, thinking about the Office of Branding, are we having representation on the ambassadors, the student ambassadors that wear clothes. Bernard, thinking about having a touch point with our Black graduate students, Black male graduate students, how do we support them? So as you go through this presentation, just really have that lens of the thoughts and come up to Dr. Byrd afterwards, the ways that you can, in your own agency and lane, support those groups, success coaching, career services, all those things. Without further ado, I present Dr. Alan Byrd.
Appreciate it, Phil. Thank you. So, just to get started, again, I'm Alan Byrd, Dean of the Mission Serve Mason. Very excited to be here. It's been 3.5 years now. I finally feel like I have a grasp on where we are, where we're headed, and what we can do moving forward. Because Mason, I know it sounds cliche, but Mason is special, man. Like, we are really, Dr. Washington says it all the time. We are what universities are going to look like 5 or 6 years from now. And we're really setting the curve in a lot of different areas. And one of the things that I was excited to speak to you all about is we're in a unique place in our country where students are seeking this sense of belonging in their college experience. And everybody's struggling with all the things going on in society, and race is a big piece of it. And our campus has a certain level of diversity and an appreciation for difference that they just don't see everywhere. And that's why we are being able to grow during this time where a lot of institutions are having a very difficult time being able to make their class and be able to continue reaching our enrollment goals. So I'm excited to share some information with you as I go through. Please feel free to jump in because it's a lot of information, but I just want to make sure that we all get something out of it, because those of you who know me know I can. There we go. All right, so again, this is just a snapshot of Mason's growth over the years. We just became the first public institution in Virginia to exceed 40,000 students this past fall. We are the largest, most diverse institution in the Commonwealth, and we are one of the fastest growing schools in the country. For the most part, our growth has been pretty consistent over the last decade, and even during the time of downward trends in enrollment for colleges and universities nationwide. And one of the reasons we've been able to continue growing, well, several reasons. First and foremost, your ability to grow has a lot to do with your location and the programs that you offer. So in terms of college enrollment growth, even though it has slowed over the last decade, the areas of growth have been pretty consistent in terms of degree programs. So as you can see, most of our growth has been in the College for Engineering and Computing. Computer science is one of the fastest growing majors in the country right now. Engineering is also very solid. Also, STEM is a career path that continues to grow. Students are starting to gravitate toward majors that have the employment outcomes and salaries that they're looking for. So what we've seen over the last really 5 or 6 years is students are gravitating toward business, STEM, and there are still, of course, students going to the performing arts, humanities, and things of that nature, but not nearly as they were 10 years ago. Students are following the money. So that's why we're starting to see these trends. And at Mason, we have very solid programs in those areas where students are gravitating to. So we've seen explosive growth compared to some of our competitors. As a matter of fact, here's just a snapshot from the Clearinghouse showing where, over the last 3 years, where the college enrollment growth has happened among the top 10 college majors. So as you can see, computer science, information sciences has exploded, as well as psychology. during the pandemic, a lot of students have decided to go into counseling. We also saw a lot of students decide to go into nursing when the pandemic hit. But again, the arts are doing well and business is doing well. But for the most part, coming out of the pandemic, we're also starting to see some changes as well. And I'll talk about that in a few slides later. Go ahead, Phil.
Just a quick question, in regards to enrollment and in the business majors, Lewis and I went to Gallup, and they said that Black students were more likely or starting to grow in entrepreneurship. Have you seen that academic or career focus in the business or enrollment too? I don't know. Do we have an entrepreneurship major at Mason? But remember, Lewis, they said that they're more, that's an occupation and career.
It's one of our many tracks that you can do in terms of specialization. Most of the students will major in something in business and do the entrepreneurial track. And of course, we have great opportunities for students in entrepreneurship with that competition we have where they can actually get seed funding for start their business on campus. But business that's one of the areas where Black males are gravitating to. Surprisingly, though, even with STEM, it's popular STEM is with more people going there. That's not a major where we're gravitating to. And I don't know if it's because we just haven't been exposed to those majors. We haven't been encouraged to go into STEM, but Black males are still well underrepresented in the migration we're seeing towards STEM right now. But another reason we're growing again is because of our ability to attract international students and students of color. For the most part, the number of white middle-class students in the United States is declining swiftly. So the schools that are traditionally depending on those students to meet their enrollment goals are having to shift their focus. And they have to really focus a lot more on diversity. So this is just a snapshot. So here at Mason, so over the last 3 years, our white population has declined by 8%, which is a little above the national average. Our population is declining faster than other schools. But if you see our growth for international students and students of color, we are well ahead of other institutions in terms of our pace. And that's why we've been able to continue to grow during this downward trend. As a matter of fact, here's a look at the national trend by race and ethnicity through the clearinghouse. As you can see, international students have grown the most over the last 3 years at 26%, followed by Asian students at 12%, and Latinx students by 3.4%, then multiracial students 6.1%. But if I go back, I mean, as you can see, we are ahead of all of those in terms of our percentages. Because again, we're in a very diverse area and we have the ability to attract students.
What are some of the thoughts around the decline of white students?
It's purely demographic. I'm actually going to show you.
Okay.
I'm going to show you. All right. So again, every incoming class, our institution becomes more diverse. And we moved into the top 10 now of the most diverse campuses in the country according to U.S. News and World Report. Now this diversity index it's not based on pure number of students of color. It's based on the mix of your students and the likelihood of students being able to engage with people from different backgrounds when they're on your campus. Because people always complain about this index because HBCUs score so low. It's because if 90% of your students are Black, they're not going to be able to interact with different cultures. So that's why our profile continues to improve, because we become every year this high, and it's based on undergrad, it's not based on graduate right now, becomes more and more broad and diverse. I mean, we literally have a critical mass of just about every student group that you can imagine, and we're growing in the right places that matches society. So we're getting closer and closer to becoming the ideal university when you look at a race and university's perspective from like the U.S. News categorizes. And our graduate school is also the most diverse in the state, but as you can see, it's a lot more concentrated in white and international students, but we do enroll a lot more underrepresented minorities, basically African American and Latino students than most of the graduate schools in the country. I mean, we are really diverse in that regard. And these rankings have led us to becoming a minority serving institution. We were just designated this past year. Over 50% of our student body is made up of students of color. And for the most part, we have that critical mass of Asian, and Native American, and Pacific Islanders that have allowed us to get that ANAPC designation. So this is putting us in a unique place where we're going to be able to be eligible for certain grants and opportunities to support our students now that we are considered a minority serving institution. And we are also, and I should have said this, we're also pretty close to becoming a Hispanic serving institution. We need our student body to get to at least 20% provisionally to qualify as an HSI. So Nova Northern Virginia Community College is already classified as an HSI, so they're receiving all type of federal funding that we will be eligible for as well once we get that threshold. Based on the demographics of our region, we really should hit that in the next 5 years. I'll actually show you. Another thing that makes us a little unique is the economic diversity of our students. We enroll one of the largest population of low-income students that you're going to find at a school like us, and I'll show you the next slide. But that allows us to do some special things in terms of social mobility. Our graduates moving up in terms of their socioeconomic status and moving up on the income threshold. So this is a snapshot of our top 10 competitors versus where we stand with the percentage of our students who qualify for the Pell Grant, along with our 6-year graduation rates. So when I say Mason is special, I'm literally talking about what we're doing. Among schools in this country where at least 30% of their students are Pell Grant eligible, we're one of only 3 that graduate over 70% of. So we're serving a much larger population of low-income students than any of our competitors, and we're graduating them at much higher levels. So again, you see some schools like UVA where they have a 92% graduation rate for Pell students, but we are graduating hundreds and hundreds more every single semester compared to a school like a UVA, who really, again, only takes the top 3 to 5% of students anyway. Also, when you look at the degrees awarded on an annual basis by race and ethnicity, I mean, Mason literally is changing the trajectory of so many families in this region. Right now, we graduate the largest Asian population of the state, the largest Hispanic population of the state, and the largest population of international students on an annual basis. Pell, I couldn't put Pell on here, but we also, by far, graduate the largest Pell population, 3 times as many as the next institution. Same thing at the graduate level. We have the largest graduate school in the state, and we graduate the largest population, every group except multiracial, which I thought was weird. That's the only category where we don't produce the most graduates in the state for master's degrees. And I have to look and see what's going on. I don't know if we need to do something with the grad application if we're not capturing it, because we enroll the largest multiracial population, so we should definitely be graduating the largest. All right, so with all that said, moving forward, these are our strategic goals over the next 5 years. The goals were set in action 2023. So the goal is for us to increase our total enrollment to 45,000 students by 2028. Right now, we're just over 40,000. The goal is to remain the most diverse institution in the Commonwealth, also by increasing access for first-generation low-income students. The reason that's important, those 2 groups makes up the fastest growing population in the state of Virginia, but right now they're the lowest college matriculation rates. So we know that we have to increase the percentage of those students going to college in order for us to continue growing and hit that 45,000 mark. Also, a neat thing that makes us unique is that our retention and graduation rates at Mason are pretty consistent across racial and socioeconomic groups. So the goal is to be able to grow and continue that, also while maintaining postgraduate outcomes for students. That's very similar. So that's another thing that's unique for us. Our graduation rates, our job placement, our starting salary, it's almost identical regardless of the student background, which I hate to say it, in the United States is very rare. Speaking personally for myself, I came from the University of Missouri St. Louis, where I was the vice president for enrollment. We were the most diverse university in Missouri, but we had significant gaps in terms of graduation rates, even starting salary. We have students with exact same jobs, but African Americans who were making $5,000 less on average start salaries. Same thing with borrowing. They were borrowing $5,000 more to earn a degree at our institution. So those are things that I have to fix as the VP, and I was able to do it in most regards. Not the starting salary piece, but everything that on campus that we can control, we reduce those gaps, and our students were borrowing the same amount. And I actually closed the graduation gap from 15% to 4% before I left. But the reason all this is so important, because again, the demographics for our country are changing rapidly. This is a snapshot of the enrollment cliff. So basically, higher ed, we've been very fortunate that we have had a consistent number of high school students graduating in our country for several decades. But we're going to hit our climax in 2025. The United States is going to graduate approximately 3.9 million high school students. And then based on birth rates that we saw actually from the last recession, the decline in the birth rates, we're going to start seeing a consistent decline in high school graduates or the 18-year-olds through 2037. So all colleges and universities will be impacted. Again, universities have been spoiled. We've had budgets based on infinite growth. Every year, we're going to increase enrollment. We're going to generate this amount of money. That's how we're going to continue growing our campus and doing the things we want to do. That is not going to be the case moving forward. Institutions are going to have to change the way they budget, the way they project their enrollment, because the growth is not there. And that is something that a lot of people can have a tough time adjusting to. So back to your point, in terms of the declines, so it's been this way for a while. So this is a projection of high school graduates in Virginia based on race. So as you can see, the white population in Virginia has been declining for many, many years, and it's actually accelerating. And as you can see, most of the growth in our state moving forward, the green bar, those are Hispanic Latino students. We're gonna have explosive growth over the next 5 to 10 years. On the flip side, the African American population in Virginia sort of leveled off. It peaked back in 2018, and most of the colleges in Virginia had record African American applications in 2020 when the pandemic hit. But since then, they've been on a downward trend. The Asian student population is going to continue to grow, but not the type of growth that you're going to see from the Hispanic community. And then you have mixed race students, and that is going to continue to grow as well. But again, not at the same rate as the Hispanic population. So all of the schools right now are rewriting their strategic plans to figure out how they're going to deal with the changing demographics and meet their goals moving forward. Also, when you break these populations down by average household income, of course, typically white families and Asian families have the highest income levels. But what's happening is those white students who used to be able to pay out of pocket to go to college are being replaced by black and brown students who don't have the same disposable income or savings for college. So the financial aid system that we have right now is not going to work for a lot of these students that are coming in the pipeline. So again, just to show you the college matriculation rates in Virginia, this just shows you the percentage of students out of high school who enroll in college within 6 months of high school graduation. So all students right now, well actually this was 2 years ago, or actually 2021, 3 years ago. So it was 69% in our state. Right now it's 64%. So again, it is continuing to go down. And right now, our fastest growing populations in Virginia are Hispanic students from economic disadvantaged families, and Asian students. So the good news is the Asian students, that number is actually 90% now. Their college matriculation rate actually increased during the pandemic, but the other populations have gone down, and we have to figure out how to re-engage these students and get them back in the pipeline and on pace to go to college, because I know, from a national standpoint, there has been an attack on the value of a college education, questioning if it's worth it. But anybody who looks at the numbers from the Federal Labor Bureau clearly sees that the majority of jobs being created in our economy require post-secondary education, an associate's degree or higher. As a matter of fact, even in Virginia, 2/3 out of jobs in Virginia require an associate's degree or higher, they say, by the year 2030. So if we aren't preparing students to go to college, the employment opportunities are going to be limited. I mean, there are a lot of trades available, and there are things you can do without a formal education, but those jobs are few and far between. With the advancements of technology, robotics, expansion of AI, a lot of those old jobs are being phased out for jobs that require a higher level of technical skill and thinking. And most often, you're going to have some type of post-secondary education to qualify for those jobs. That's why we have to get our young people who have gotten out of the system back in the system, so they'll be able to provide for their families moving forward. So again, this is just national projections. Like I said, we're going to see explosive growth from the Hispanic community over the next almost decade. The Asian community is going to have mild growth, 1 to 2%. African American population is going to decline slightly and level out. And then this blue line is the white population of high school graduates moving forward. So there's a lot of political angst about this. That's why you're seeing attacks on affirmative action and a lot of things, because people see the demographics changing, and there's going to be a power shift in the country as a result. So, I mean, I hate to say it, but it's like we're going back years, trying to prevent people from being able to advance their education and advance their careers. But as educators, we have to make sure that we keep those doors open. Because again, not only is college college matriculation rates impacted by race and social class, but there's almost a direct correlation with the education attainment of their parents. So this is a breakdown of the United States by educational attainment. by race. So you can see children growing up in our schools, if they are black or brown right now, on Pacific Island, only 25 to 30% of their parents right now have a college degree, which makes them more likely to go and graduate from college. So all of our efforts have to be channeled on what are we doing to remove barriers for students who don't come from college-educated families to go to college and be able to afford it and have a successful experience. So in terms of the profile, I just mentioned. So profiling college students rapidly becoming more ethnically diverse and female dominant. We're going to see more first generation and non-native English speakers coming to our campus moving forward. We're going to see much lower household incomes than we've seen in the past. And students aren't going to be as academically prepared. The pandemic really did a number on students in terms of their math, reading, and writing. And honestly, ACT and SAT scores are right now at the 30-year low in terms of proficiency, especially for math and English. So students are going to have some academic challenges. But as universities, what we have to do is prepare to be universities of the future to where we don't look at the students as being in deficit, saying, why are they coming to us this way? We prepare to serve them in terms of where they are. So our academic support services, our financial aid, those things are going to have to look different moving forward. So as I showed you earlier, Mason, even though the demographics have changed, we've still been able to generate interest. These are our application trends for the last 5 years. So you saw the chart of how white high school graduates in Virginia has been declining for 20 years now. Look at our white applications. Now we did have a decline last year, but then we bounced back in 2023 and had a 4% increase. Same for every single student population. We've still been able to increase our applications. And I'll get more current. But one of the challenges we face, now I'll get into the meat of our here. One of the challenges that we face is that we don't yield all the students the same. So students apply to Mason, but our yield rates vary dramatically based on race. So this chart just really shows you how our yield rates by race go according to the median. So this is our median yield for the institution. So right now, students of Middle Eastern descent, we have one of the highest yield rates in the country. It's over 70%. So if they apply to Mason, they're admitted, 70% of them are signing up, registering, they're coming to Mason. On the flip side, as you can see, on the other side of the median, African American students, we have a relatively low yield rate. The last couple of years, we've had roughly a 19% yield rate for African American students, even though they're applying in record numbers. So there's something about our campus, there's something about the engagement with us where they're not deciding to come to school here. Not you have the data, I'll show you, but we'll talk about it. But being an institution, you have to understand how people perceive you, what type of experiences they have. Because when I arrived at Mason, one of the reasons I applied to Mason, first of all, because it's extremely diverse, and I was blown away by the fact that we did not have deficits for students based on color in our graduation rates, our retention rates, and our outcomes. However, when I saw this, I was surprised, and I asked, why aren't we changing our messaging and our recruitment approach to meet the needs of these various groups as opposed to recruit everyone the same? So right now, we have a communication plan where everyone receives the same messages, the same events, no targeted events for these certain student populations. And that makes it very difficult to address those gaps. So what I'm trying to do is to make our outreach, our communication, even our financial aid, making it more strategic to where we can fill in some of these gaps to close on some of these populations we don't do as well. And I should say do as well. It's really African American students and Pacific Islanders. Those are the two groups that we yield below average. Everyone else, we're pretty much above average, and this one is going to be key. The Latino, Hispanic, Chicano, if that just stays average, we're going to continue growing tremendously because of the demographics of our region. But I think everywhere else, we're going to have to be really strategic about how, again, we can encourage, support more students to go to college and to be in a university where they feel at home and they have no question that it's a good fit for them. So this is just a snapshot to show you our market share from the last freshman class. Again, we received over 5,400 applications from African American students, and we ended up enrolling 586 last fall. So it was an all-time record for the number of African American students we enrolled, as well as Asian, international, and multiracial. But we had a gained a +6. And a percentage of our class from 14% to 3.2% that last cohort. Now, the thing with our youth that I mentioned is below average. It's 19% for African American students. It's actually about 25% for African American females. It's extremely low for African American males. So, I mean, again, the first thing that I think is, okay, what are males seeing when they visit our campus? What are they experiencing that's so different than all the other students that are coming to Mason? And
A question, and I don't know if this is in the chat or if you already answered it, but Ibrahim, who's joining us virtually, said, I don't know if you already said it, so pardon me if I stepped out. Do you know the reasons why enrollment of white students is declining? Did you already answer that? You already answered that?
It's demographic.
Demographic.
And then that's a national thing, and in Virginia it's even extreme. The number is just demographic. The white population, their birth rates have declined. They're not producing as many children, and then during the recession, it really slowed down. So now we're starting to see the trickle effect, and there's just less in the pipeline.
And then his second question in the chat was with all the projected growth, we have yet to have serious discussions about managing the growth, right? Scalability. What plans are in place to meet the need? And obviously this is an enrollment, but I guess you're at the table to show the enrollment data. So increasing class sizes and all that, like they're growing. And in these discussions, you're telling them, hey, the university from my admission standpoint is growing. What are some of the plans to meet that need of growing?
Absolutely. So again, that's one of, from a strategic standpoint, our institution has to figure out what the right size is, determine the number of students that we can physically accommodate in our classrooms, parking, living situation. That's something that, the administration is working on now. So President Washington, like I said, last year, for the first time said that 45,000 is our goal in terms of our total enrollment, and after we get that, we'll sort of level off. But I mean, it's honestly right now, like, we don't have enough classes for the class we're about to bring in. Like the class that we're about to bring in will be the largest in school history. It'll be somewhere around 4,700. We really can only accommodate about 42, 43 maybe. So we're going to need more classes. We're going to need more residence hall space. I mean, we're going to have some growing pains this summer because, again, it's one of those things. Our facilities plan and the things that we have in place, our enrollment is outpacing all of that. So we're going to have to figure out how we're going to house these students and how we're going to accommodate them. Because I felt really bad for residents like my housing last semester. Like we share projections with them weekly, but it didn't really hit until we had a long wait list of students for housing, and parents were calling and people were upset. It's going to be even worse this year. But
yeah. So speaking to that, I know we're building that new the main, I believe,
yep, main
street, and just just speak with students. I guess what's the plan? I guess in the sense of how do we combat that if we are growing too fast and not accommodating all those levels?
So the main is something that we really need, as well as there's another new apartment complex on what street is it? Bryd. So we need those facilities to offset some of our upperclassmen because if we need them to move off campus to make room for the new students coming in. So we actually need more developments like that. And honestly, I'm surprised that we didn't, because somebody's gonna make a ton of money off of our growth housing these students. We have a huge pipeline that's growing, and right now, we encourage first-year students to live on campus, but we're at a point now where we're gonna have to be really relaxed. We don't have the room to accommodate them. We have roughly 6,200 beds on campus, and if our freshman class grows to 5,000, we don't have room for anybody else. So I'm not part of those conversations right now. They tell me focus on bringing them in, but again, every chance I get, I'm letting them know, this is what we're gonna need down the road. Now, in terms of back to why students don't enroll in Mason, we do a non-yield survey every year to students who are accepted to Mason who didn't enroll. We have about a 20% response rate who tell us why they didn't come. These have been the top 3 reasons for the last 20 years. Either we didn't provide them with a competitive financial aid package, or they just, receive the largest scholarship from somewhere else. Number two, the academic reputation of Mason, they didn't feel it was as strong as where they went. That was mostly UVA and Tech students. Then number three, the campus environment. People still feel like we're somewhat of a commuter campus and are not gonna have the same social experience that they have in other campuses.
I haven't taught college in 20 years. I'm glad you said 20 years, right? At least, right? Is there a sense with the 90% acceptance rate and the demographics that we have here that Mason is becoming a safety school for people in this
Yes,
region?
absolutely. Specifically for Northern Virginia. So we're safety school for a lot of students in Northern Virginia, but if you go to other parts of Virginia, like, so in our survey, we also asked if Mason was your top choice in 3 to 5 or 5 to 10. Most of the campus were safety school, but the further you get away, students are more likely to be the top 5 choices. Now, we do have a growing number in Northern Virginia where we are their first choice, and most of those students are for particular programs. I mean, nursing is one, computer science is one. And we have a lot of students, if they don't get into UVA or Tech, they're coming to Mason. So it just depends on their major and their situation. But surprisingly, these are the top 3 for all students, right? You disaggregate the survey by race, number 3 goes up to number 2 for African American students. So their academic reputation is not the reason they're coming, it's actually the social fit. And specifically for Black males, I don't know what it is about Fairfax, I don't know the history, but they don't see a lot of things for themselves to do in Fairfax. They mention the lack of like school spirit and things for them to do. A lot of questions about like where do Black people hang out, where do they get their haircut. Like, we have to do a better job of being able to articulate the Black experience for those students throughout our recruitment efforts. Because when they go to, I'll use Richmond for example. In terms of competition for African American students, BCU is our top competitor. And they kick out butt. Like, I've only been to Richmond for a few meetings, so I haven't got to explore the city. I don't know it well. But I assume do they have a lot of African Americans that live in Richmond, because they hurt us pretty badly. Also, the HBCU too? Yes, sure. Gotcha. So the HBCUs are also major competitors for us. We lose a lot of students to them as well. But traditionally, if you look overall, actually, I'll show you. So these are our top competitors in terms of cross applications. In terms of students who apply to Mason and apply somewhere else, these typically are the top 10 institutions where our students are applying. And in terms of where they're enrolling, this is from the clearinghouse showing us once students were accepted here, then enrolled, we can actually look them up to see where they're enrolled. So as you can see, overall, Tech by far is our top competitor in terms of where our students enroll. However, now I couldn't disaggregate the clearinghouse data by race, but when you disaggregate this by race, these schools are totally different. African American students, I mean, BCU goes to number 1, but none of these other schools are back. When you take BCU out, ODU is on the list. I think ODU is like number 5 when you do it by race. But it's all HBCUs. They're looking for a Black experience. And as a matter of fact, during the pandemic, the HBCUs really emerged. I mean, students started flocking HBCUs, and that trend is still going. I
was going to add some context for the VCU. What I assume is that because VCU is located in Richmond and there's 2 other HBCUs,
there's a lot of social things you got.
Yeah, it's a benefit to go there because you also have other colleges.
Yep, and that comes up. They talk about the presence of Bryd life and athletics. That comes up a lot as well. And they talk about the school pride of those schools and in terms of citing why they didn't choose Mason. And I don't know, is any of this surprising to any of you all? Because I'm learning the region, but now I'm getting a better handle on also the way students perceive diversity. So in terms of diversity, that's one of our greatest strengths in terms of attracting students right now. We have an admitted student survey where they list the reasons why they decided to apply to Mason. Diversity is now one of the top 3 reasons. It used to be like number 7. But again, in more recent years, students are more diversity focused on their college planning. But African American students and Latino students look at diversity different than other students. When other students come to our campus, they see a multicultural society where you see a little bit of everything. Black and brown students, when they look for diversity, they're looking for themselves. So one of the things we constantly see on surveys from African American students, especially if they come for a Saturday tour, I didn't see a lot of Black people. And for us, I mean, again, we enroll a sizable amount of African American students, but they don't see them when they visit. So I'm trying to figure out how can we make sure when people visit our campus, they see our students and they see us. Because I'm going to be honest with you. When I got here, I was excited when I saw the number of Black males on this campus. Like I worked in multiple institutions. I mean, usually I'm one of 3 or 4. My last institution, I was a VP. I was the only Black person on executive leadership. And I mean, I have to, like Sam, I was on every brochure, every billboard, anything dealing with diversity, I had to be there. It was a burden. But like here, like we have a lot of strong brothers on campus who are doing great things. And we have to even showcase that in our marketing and recruitment efforts. Like I went to our marketing folks, I was like, can I do some profile of Black men to send out to students? They were like, well, we have profiles. We have plenty of profiles up, and you know they have something they've done already. But I'm like, we have to get more targeted. We have to show our students people who look like them doing amazing things at Mason. So we're getting there. I also wanted to create an African American resource guide for incoming students and families, like showing them popular restaurants that our students like, where they get their hair done, and things of that nature, things that I've done at other campuses. But initially, I received pushback because they, Mason, like we recruit everybody the same. We never had to do that before. We're the most diverse campus in the state, but we will lose our market share if we continue with this one-size-fits-all messaging and recruitment.
I'm gonna have to do a little pushback on the comment that we recruit all our students the same. And I'm gonna use as reference the Hispanic campaign.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they're all on buses, and I'm told that the campaign is really with the intent of marketing to the parents of those students, because it's in Spanish. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's in Spanish, so we don't recruit all our students the same.
Well, but that campaign was actually part of that argument that I made. This argument that I make is when I arrived. When I arrived, we didn't have a campaign in Spanish. As a matter of fact, even when we did the campaign in Spanish, we didn't have people answer the phone who spoke Spanish, which killed my office because people were calling, asking for help. They saw billboards.
In Spanish.
I have 2 bilingual people on my staff who were always on the road. We couldn't answer that question. We had to call modern languages to get people to translate for us. So now, strategically, we're preferring bilingual people, every person that we hire. So now our student ambassadors and my retention team, my recruitment team, we beefed up. So now we're in a better position. Like we just did a financial aid workshop at Osborne High School on Tuesday.
All Spanish,
I was there and Shannon Osborne was coming and we had some financial well-being mentors, but they got caught in traffic. So I was first. Well, so I had to kick things off and start it. Well, half the families didn't speak English. So I was like, oh. And the good thing is the students were translated, but it just showed me this has to be, if we're going to be the school that we need to be, like we have to have bilingual people in all our schools. I mean, 60% of the student body is Hispanic. Large percentage of our families don't speak English, yet we can't communicate with them.
Right, so I'm part of the Black Studies Association, and some of our conversation, what I heard was that even African Americans that come to Mason, one of the issues that they talk about is that even though the university kind of put everybody together, African, whether you are coming from Africa or you are from here, we're all put in the same bucket. And so some of the students that are from here, they come and they say, oh, the people that we're seeing are not necessarily Africans from here, but Africans from foreign countries. So they don't still feel like that in that community. They don't feel like that part of that social group because there seems to be some kind of distinction. And I don't know when you were doing the presentation, do you kind of have a data in sense of how many foreign Africans are coming here and how many African Americans are coming to UNC?
Right, so in the numbers, the way that we report numbers to IPS, the federal government, students from Africa don't show up as African American. So all international students are categorized together regardless of where they're from, so they don't show up in our ethnicity numbers at all. Yeah, so the numbers that I presented, those are students who identify as African American or domestic students.
Thank you.
Question, how do you think about the 11% in terms of the percentage of student body? Is that good? Like, how do you as an institution think about that number?
Absolutely. So most institutions, the goal is to have a percentage that's reflective of the region, or the college-going population of the region. So for example, in Virginia, 20% of our high school population is African American. But right now, only 12% of those students are actually in college. So our goal as an institution should be at least 12%. Right now, like we don't have goals at Mason. Like our goal is to be the most diverse, but we don't have specific goals for different categories of students. But our internal goal in my office is to get that to 12% to match the college going rate in our state.
Is that, or what's the critical mass number?
The critical mass number, I mean, I would say, I said we're already at the critical mass number. I mean, nationally, for a school like Mason or Research One, you're usually going to be between 10 and 12%. I mean, that's about average. The really progressive schools like University of Maryland and a few others, like they're higher, but for Research One, 11% is really good.
What do you think about the graduation rate over 6 years? Is that in the ballpark or what?
So we're above the national average. So the national average for African Americans at public institutions is usually about 45 to 50%. So it's low. So it's a low bar looking at all publics. When you look at the Research Ones, it goes up to like 65. So I mean, we're above average there as well. But that's actually a down cohort for us. Like when I interviewed, we were at 70%, we were at 72%, but now it looks like during these last couple of years, it's starting to go down a little bit. So we're at 69 now. But as you can see, if you look at the graduation rates from the other schools, really on UVA and William and Mary and Tech are substantially higher than us. And honestly, we can match what they're doing, but again, it's gonna have to be intentional. Like I hate to say this, we are a victim of our own success. Like we've been able to achieve all these great things without having plans, strategies, and allocating resources toward these things. Like in my last position, I raised millions of dollars, had corporate partnerships, and partnered with Lumina, the Clark Foundation, to close some of these gaps when we had special scholarships and services to support groups and close these gaps. And like Mason's been able to do it without any of that. So when I come in the room talking about like, what type of supplemental instruction do we have for courses where we have high DFW rates for African American students, they're like, well, they don't look at it that way. They look at all of these. But if you have certain courses that are a problem for African American students and all others, you have to address that. That's how you close those gaps. It's just a different way of looking at things.
One more question. So, and just being intellectually curious, a little bit off topic, but I see the numbers there. I see DSU and Virginia State and Norfolk State at 40 to 46%. Is that typical for what you see in other states in terms of HBCUs? And my follow-up question is there some kind of structural thing going on there where that's the case?
Yeah, so with HBCUs, typically they are going to have lower graduation rates because most of them are open enrollment. So, I mean, when you have an open enrollment institution, you have a broad range of academic abilities, and they typically also don't have the same resources as a school like a Mason in terms of academic support, advisory, and things they have in place. Now, there are some HBCUs, basically there was 3 last year that had graduation rates above 70%. It was Spelman, Morehouse, and third escapes me. It's in that line. It's not Clark. No, Clark's at like 46. I can send it to you guys. I track all of that. So there are a few HBCUs with graduation rates above 70, but it's only like I said, 3 in the country. Most of them are below 50% at this point. And it's really because again, they serve a broader population of students. Like there's a lot of students that say VSU who wouldn't be able to get into like Mason or Tech. So they provide more outreach in terms of access.
One last question. Oh, is it safe, as I'm trying to frame this in my head, is it safe to say that the university really doesn't have a priority in recruiting African American students at the university? Not that they don't want them, but it's not a priority for them to recruit them.
I would say right now it's not a strategic goal to go after certain amount of students. Like we look at diversity as a broad term, and it goes to remain the most diverse. But like when I say, okay, I have my recruitment budget is $400,000. Like where we spend that money, where we spend our time is based on our goals. So right now, I mean, it makes it, we're a national university, so we recruit all over. But physically, we really are only on the ground in like 25 states. Also, looking at the demographics, we know we have opportunity for growth, but our philosophy is built on fit, which sometimes counters African Americans. So, for example, I'll put it to you this way. If we have 2 weeks where we're in a certain state, typically we're going to spend those 2 weeks in the high schools where we have the greatest likelihood of enrolling students, and usually one of the first things we're going to look at grades, second thing is family income. So we spend most of our time out of state in wealthy suburbs where we can have less African American students. And even the ones we have in those schools, typically they are, looking at schools with a higher ranking or reputation. So they'll apply to us as a backup, but we're usually not going to be their first choice. Where on the flip side, if we went to schools, say, I'll put it to you this way. So I moved, we had a California regional rep who represented us in California, visiting 200-300 schools a year.
Wow.
When we lost him, I decided to move that position to Maryland because the data clearly showed students in Maryland are more likely to enroll in Mason than in California. We visited an extra 300 schools in Maryland, we're going to have a much better return, which we are. But now we're starting to visit more schools in Prince, George County, and Baltimore, places where we previously wouldn't have gone, and now our applications are skyrocketing. That's why we have record applications for African American students this year.
Baltimore, yep.
But again, financial aid wise, we don't package students from out of state to where they can afford to be a full-time student and live on campus. So even though we have great interest from, let's say, Baltimore, unless we change our financial aid, most of those students are not going to be able to come to Mason. Like the way that we're set up right now, we are a great school for local students who don't even live on campus, who don't have financial needs, or if they, how can I say this? Their parents have to be able to comfortably spend $12,000 to $15,000 out of pocket. If they can't, Mason's not a good fit financially. And that's the toughest thing for me right now because I did a lot of my recruitment in Maryland, and they want to come here so badly, but the gaps are large. It's like I cannot consciously have you come here knowing you're gonna have to come up with $6,000 out of pocket each semester. And they go to their grandmother, uncles, and they get, somebody to pay one semester and I figure out what to do next semester. That is not a way to go to college. That financial burden, not knowing if you're gonna be able to pay your bill next semester, this is a lot to commit to. So we're trying to.
Does your data also break down like per city or per county where our African American population is coming from, or where we advertise to?
Yeah, so we advertise broad. No, we don't like our advertising is broadly in terms of how we pick schools though. So we have a database. It's actually an algorithm that shows us which students have been most likely to apply to Mason in the past. So high schools are ranked based off that. So I mean so for example, when I send someone to say Charlotte, and we only there for 2 weeks, he can look at that dashboard to know which high schools he's going to get the most hits on. So he'll plan his schedule around it that way. All right, so in terms of some short-term steps, these are the things that we have put in action these past 2 years to really enhance our outreach for diversity. First and foremost, attend all diversity-related college fairs in the region. Like this is a big one for us because again, we attend most of the things in Northern Virginia, but we didn't go to a lot of college fairs throughout the DMV, like churches and different things, because again, we would either think the students couldn't afford Mason or we didn't think it was a good fit. Well, now that's over. I mean, anytime we get invited to something, if we have one available, we're going to be there. And that has given us a great opportunity because now we're starting to have interest from students that were not applying to Mason in the past. I'm also developing a brochure and website that encompasses our diversity, but again, I still want to develop some specific pieces for African American students, Latinx students, indigenous students, because again, like those students have unique things they're looking for on our campus, and we have to be able to show that. I participate on the task force that Shawnee just created, working with indigenous tribes, and they talked about the importance of us having spaces for students where they see themselves on our campus. And some of the faculty members gave us a hard time because they had a bench, but the benches like rotate every few years, and right now they don't have a bench. And they said they brought a group to show them the bench, and they no longer had a bench. I mean, it's little things like that though. The students, they remember those things. So again, it's about us being really intentional, make sure everyone's represented, and we can speak to their language and meet them where they are in our recruitment efforts. That's something I feel like we're doing better right now for African American students. At least we're trying, especially around like Greek life, because they look for Greeks and like you don't see them. They're not as visible on our campus. So we've been a little more intentional with inviting Greeks to our events and making sure that they're around, because it makes a difference. Just them seeing people walking around with letters on makes them feel differently about the campus. So again, I'm trying to figure out and look forward to work with you on how we can continue to engage people that way. Also, the telemarketing social media campaign, we haven't been able to pull that off yet. I mean, we have the all together different, but I want to do some targeted things specifically for African American students, showing them step shows on our campus, showing them some of the community service, some of our student organizations and our Greeks are doing, because again, those are the type of things they're looking for. Also, direct admissions, that's a big one. We did launch a direct admissions program with 8 local schools. This fall, we purposely chose schools with the highest percentage of students who qualify for free or reduced lunch, because those are also the schools with the largest population of underrepresented minorities and first generation college students. And a few other things, but I want to give you. So these are the 8 schools.
Quick question on that last slide. Is there any effect of having Black faculty?
Absolutely.
Classes?
Absolutely. And honestly, there's not a lot of schools that feature their Black faculty. And we have great Black faculty in Mason. That's why I want to, I'm trying to
Tap this group.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Like, so we do different campaigns where we feature a faculty member. And the good thing is we feature different departments, we feature all types of things. But having a targeted program for African American students, sending specific faculty members to them on things that they're interested in would be powerful for us. That's something that I did 2 schools ago, where I was in a very rural area of Missouri, the home of Rush Limbaugh. And I was the director of multicultural recruitment. So I had to use things like that to get people to, even be able to envision themselves as a student on our campus. But I think that would also work for Mason, because we have faculty doing great things and students just don't see it and they don't know about it. So in terms of the 8 schools, these are the schools that we started with this year. So basically the way it works is we have MOUs with these schools where in the summer, they send us a list of all of their rising seniors who have a certain GPA and are required courses to get into Mason. And when school starts, we send them a letter from Mason guaranteeing them admission before they even apply. It's called direct admissions. It's a concept that's really popular right now. Common App started it in Virginia in 2021, and we're part of that pilot as well. But now we started our own institutional program. The goal, we were hoping that we can get 50% of the students to apply and accept our offer. As of last week, we were at 52%. And just to show you the impact, so last year, these are those 8 schools. Without direct admissions, 26% of their seniors applied to Mason. This year, as of yesterday, we're up to 30%. So it's doing exactly what it was intended to do, to encourage more students to apply to college, more importantly, apply to Mason. And now, the president is excited about the program and wants us to expand it to 20 schools for next year. So these are the 12 additional schools we're working on right now. I just met with the leadership of Prince William County on Monday, and they are excited. So it looks like we're going to add those schools. Fairfax is already signed on, so now we have one more meeting actually with Wakefield and Arlington County that's not on here that we're trying to get them as well.
What's that RL? Last column.
Free and reduced lunch, the percentage of our students who qualify for free and reduced lunch. All right, also supporting this work is we have received the Shell Pale Initiative grant. We applied for this grant, I guess, last summer. Again, the state realizes that we have a growing population of low-income students who are not going to college. So they invested $37 million in helping the public schools engage those students to get more of them to come and earn college degrees. So we received $1.2 million over the next few years, and we're adding, as you can see, a few positions to really support funding, bringing more students to campus to expose them to Mason and providing them access to excellent seminars that we're partnering with the EIP program, offer college planning, financial literacy, and faster completion workshops for these schools. So you guys are going to be seeing a lot of groups being busted campus. We're paying for them to come, we're feeding them lunch, and we're developing really content to get them excited about college and excited about Mason. And then the Common App, as I mentioned earlier, they really started direct admissions in Virginia. We were the first large public school to sign on. So basically, when students do the Common App, they get to identify if they are first-gen and low income. If they are, they're entered into the Common App direct admissions program, where they can receive direct admissions offers to various schools in the state. We're one of the 6 schools in Virginia participating. So we offer roughly 2,000 to 3,000 students direct admissions through the Common App every year. The first pilot, 226 accepted, our offer 30 enrolled. But in 2023, when BCU jumped on, we got less apps. And as you can see, we only got 6 students because BCU got most of those students. However, this year we went big. So we're up to 1,300. We really went aggressive with it. So hopefully this year we can counter VCU taking our direct admissions to the Common App. It's a great program, and this is statewide. So our program is local, only 8 schools. This program is for every student in Virginia. So we're actually getting a lot of rural students that we don't visit their high schools through this program because it's showing Mason as a viable option for them.
That direct admit, does that come with some type of, preliminary financial aid package?
That's a great question. No, that's the downside. So what direct admissions has done is stimulated great interest for these student populations, but our financial aid has to adjust. So just to put things in perspective, and I'm happy you asked that question. That's why we only enrolled 6 students. Mason was the top choice for a lot of them. When the financial aid packages came out, we could not compete. I mean, what happened was a lot of schools have promise programs where they give free tuition to low-income students now. BCU increased their scholarships last year. So right now in Virginia, we offer our max scholarship for a Virginia resident if they have a 4.0 GPA higher is $2,000. Right now, BCU gives those same students $4,000. So again, unless a student is dead set on Mason, we're offering half of what they're getting from BCU. And I'm not even going to talk about UVA, Williams, and Marion, because if those schools get into those schools, they have financial need, they meet 100% of their need. So they can go for free when we're asking them to borrow $15,000 to $20,000. All right, so this is just a snapshot of the impact that these initiatives have had this year. We're about to exceed 10,000 applications for first-generation students for the first time in school history. We're up 20%. As a matter of fact, we have never exceeded 9,000 first-generation applications. So that fall 2023, that was end of year. So that 83.27, that was how much we received the entire year. This is as of yesterday. We have that 9,958. So these initiatives and this outreach is working. The next step is for us, what do we have to put in place again to ensure that Mason is the school for these students? Because right now we're able to attract them. And here's a snapshot of our applications by race. I showed you earlier where we were last year. This is this year's numbers as of yesterday. So again, the percentage and number of African American students in our region is declining. Our largest increase among all populations is for African American students right now for this fall. That's because we're visiting those schools in Maryland, and we're going to access related college fairs that we didn't go to in the past. So create new opportunities for us. Also, most people are not seeing an increase in white applications either because of, again, the demographics in our state, but we're able to attract enough white students from out of state while we're continuing to grow there. So basically, we have power and we're not confined to our local demographics. A lot of other schools are. A lot of schools in our region aren't going to make it. I mean, I feel bad. Like, Radford, for example, has had declined enrollment for 8 consecutive years. They're cutting programs, they're laying people off. Like, we are in a position where we are not, again, we're not relying on our local area. We can actually recruit students beyond that. But right now we have record applications for every ethnic group except American Indian students. And that's something that we're working on as well. That's the task force I mentioned earlier with Shania. There's 7 federal tribes here in Virginia, and they are they have a movement right now to get more Native American students going back to college. Right now, 1 out of every 5 Native American high school graduates in our state go to college. And as I mentioned earlier, with the state, it's like 64% are going. So they are and the population is declining as well. It's declined from 25,000 to 22,000 over the last decade. So they are concerned, but we're about to partner with them. And we're going to be doing some outreach and pipeline programs to ensure that we provide an opportunity for them to attend Mason as well.
Maybe we should. I'm gonna keep on for free.
What is the cost? Do you break down the cost per recruit? Like, is it more expensive to recruit a strong Black student versus a strong Asian student?
Yeah, because they're rare. Well, I won't say rare. There's not as many. So there's a certain grade point average and grade point average and standardized test score where an African American student will be out of our range, just because we know they're going to get polarized everywhere else. And Lewis is not here, but that's why EIP is so hard for us to recruit. Like, our EIP students, they do extremely well. Like, Mason can't match their financial aid package unless they get one of our top scholarships, university scholarships.
Yeah, what's that?
It's the early identification program. It's a program that University LACI is working with first generation students, very early in the pipeline, all the way through to help prepare them for college. Great program. As a matter of fact, expanding that program is going to be key to our success because we have to get more students engaged early on to make sure they have the academic background to be able to go to college. So the initiatives that I just showed really just led to this. This is our market share of Virginia high school seniors applying to Mason. So we only had a 0.3% increase in high school seniors in our state, yet we had a 9% increase in applications this year. We typically were, pre-pandemic, we had never hit 14%. So the pandemic forced people to stay closer to home to college. More students considered Mason. So we hit 14%. Coming out of the pandemic, our goal was just try to maintain that 14%. But a lot of things happened in our favor to where we were able to get to 16% last year and now 17.5%. One of it is moving up in the rankings. Our academic reputation has increased. We are now a top 50 public research university, and that comes with a lot of interest. Also, we keep earning awards by diversity, which makes us very attractive to diverse student populations. So it also helps that we have an African American president who's very well respected nationally. Like, a lot of these things online, again, we are being able to attract students that we could not attract 5 years ago. And it's changing our position in the state, which everyone is not happy with. So just to put things in perspective, these are the enrollment targets for all the Virginia public universities. Well, as many as I can fit on my chart. So we've always been the number one, well, not always, but in recent years, the number one destination for transfer students in the Commonwealth. Yeah, so our enrollment target for transfer students is 3,000 students for the fall. Next closest campus is ODU at 2,000. But as you can see, George Mason is now third for high school students. This is going to be the first year that we've ever enrolled more freshmen in VCU. This is huge for us as an institution. Typically, the pecking order has been Tech, JMU, VCU for high school students. But we have taken a bold step, and now this is the first time, like I said, usually our class is 200 to 300 students below VCUs. So this shows the progress that we're making. And I won't point out any schools, but there's several schools below here who are begging the state to cap our enrollment because it's saying it's hurting their ability to grow and meet their enrollment goals. So there is very strong echoes across the state to cap our enrollment.
Earlier you mentioned, you showed the 3 main factors of why students not choosing financial aid, academics, as well as campus experience. In terms of the financial aid package, you mentioned it a couple of times. Is that solely a Mason decision, or is it based off of what the federal government is?
It's a combination. So part of it is financial aid. You have your federal aid, your state aid, your institutional aid. The federal aid is the same regardless of where you go. So state aid wise, we were receiving less dollars per student than the other state schools. So our state grants have been lower. So for example, Commonwealth grant a couple of years ago, we were offering students $6,500. VCU was offering that same student $7,500 in state grants because they were receiving a larger allocation from the state. And that's been corrected over the last 2 years thanks to President Washington lobbying in Washington. We received $25 million additional grant aid. So now our state grants are now matching other public school state grants. So that's why this last year or so, we're starting to see that give us a little more of a competitive advantage because we're not giving less money than everyone else.
Now, I just want to make sure that we kind of wrap it up because I want people to get something to eat and also go to our next one. I know, and so a good point is this conversation is very robust, and I know you got please connect with Dr. Bryd for this discussion. This is just to pique your interest in seeing individually how you can connect with him and collaborate with him. If you need a model for Greek life, I will wear my letters and come out there. I can't stroll or nothing, but I do, be out there. But I also would like to be on billboards too. But if you need any support for faculty, Black faculty and staff, you have someone on wax to say that they'll support this.
Right, and I just want to close by saying, again, any of you who are interested in joining our recruitment efforts, like I would love to work with you. Because for the most part, again, at the end of the day, like if students come and they see and they get to interact, engage with us, they're more likely to come later. So the more we can feature you all front and center, the better we're going to do specifically with Black males. Now again, for some reason, like our Black females are coming. Our yield for Black females isn't as low. For Black males right now, it's just not there. And I think part of the game is just visually seeing Greeks, and because again, like the thing about the survey data, Black males specifically talk about Greeks and not having football. Like they're very specific. So we know why they're not coming. Is just as a campus, what can we do to fill some of those gaps? But I appreciate the time, and like Phil said, reach out to me anytime. I am definitely open to if you have any suggestions, anything you want to try. I mean, we're very, very open to programming, and for the most part, like we are in a driver's position knowing this region. Like Virginia Tech is the hottest school in Virginia. They received $52,000 this year, but they have an enrollment cap and they're already there. They can't even grow. So really, it's Mason's opportunity. Like we really can't take it and run with it.
You mentioned GMU being pretty good at Thank you so much. They recently came out with a Terrapin commitment for low-income students. Are we doing anything like that to fundraise for things like that?
Yes, excellent question. So we have the Mason Virginia Promise, which is similar for us, but right now we have to raise more money for it. So right now, the Mason Virginia Promise, only students who participate in our advanced program or the early identification program that I mentioned earlier are eligible. So those two groups can get 100% of their tuition paid if they come to Mason. But like Maryland, like William and Mary, like UVA, it has to be the entire state. Like that's the key. In Maryland, like since they created that program, we can't touch a low-income student from Maryland. They get to go for free. Yeah. And everybody right now understands that that's the future. Like if low-income students can't attend your institution, you're not going to be able to grow. So all the schools have college programs like that, and we have to be able to offer something similar. All right, I'm done.
Well, let's give a hand. I just go like that too. So please, we're gonna we have to go right into the second one. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go right into our second session. But
I think we didn't talk. So what time is running down, so we should grab a sandwich, and then we'll just talk to the last piece if you can say.
Yes, if you can stand. So yeah, grab a sandwich. We got sandwiches, lots of sandwiches, lots of sandwiches. Lots of lots.
No, actually, you tried to.
Our next raffle.
There's no way to acquire that now.
Sam.
Oh yeah, I want one.
Yeah.